Want to welcome everybody to this evening's Malliard Report. Of course, I said I wasn't going to say this evening anymore, and here I am doing it again, but faulty habits stay with you forever. The views and opinions of this program are those of the host and guests, because we're doing live calls tonight, so do not reflect any sponsor, affiliate, or anybody else. Tonight we're doing live calls on education. Now, I have a reason for doing this show, and we'll get into that. We'll save that for the bottom of the show, so you have to stay tuned completely through the show to figure out why I'm doing this show tonight. I know that's like the ultimate tease that a host can give. In an hour, I'll tell you why we did tonight's show. Yeah, you're just going to have to deal with it. I think tonight's show will be fun in the interim, too. So I've got a friend of the show on right now. I've got Bruce on. He is a school teacher from North Carolina. Bruce, how are you doing tonight?
Excellent. Mr. Malliard, it's a pleasure to be on the show. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
So I when the subject popped up in my mind today, well, it's been kicking around in my head for a few days, but it finally settled today when well, anyways, I said I'll get into that later, so I'll get into that later. I decided I was going to message some teachers, because I think, because Calls About Education kind of has a broad scope, because I wanted it to be broad, because there's a lot going on today, and I'm sure that you could tell me a story about a high school teacher that impacted your life years ago. So it's kind of this whole scope of things that are going through my mind today. But I want to talk to you first about going back. Where are you, and how do you feel about going back?
Well, Mr. Malliard, I am a little apprehensive. I understand everything that's going on. I saw that in Atlanta, the school district around there, which is much larger than the school district I teach in. They had issues with COVID. My school district is putting several very important steps in place to make sure to ensure the safety of all the staff and students and teachers and such. It still makes me apprehensive, but it's it's tough to do online learning with all students. We've got to do our best for our students. We got to, kind of meet them where they live, so to speak. Online learning works for some students, and face-to-face learning works, well for other students. And it's just something we've got to have to deal with, and we're going to take one day at a time.
That's for sure. Are you more optimistic about online learning today than you were when you first heard of, we're kind of all thrown into this back in the spring?
Yeah. Now I'm a little bit different. I teach in a small school district here in North Carolina. We are, once again, it's just one primary school, one middle school, one elementary school, one high school. We have an alternative school, and it's great because we're so small, we're so well connected. Basically, if there's anything I need in my school district, I can get it, and I shouldn't have any problems getting it. Even though we're small and our budget's limited, my school district, they put the money where it counts. And technology was a real big push, probably about 13 years ago. We became a one-to-one school, and so I've been teaching with computers, my social studies classes, since 2007, and it's been great. My students kind of know exactly how I'm kind of doing things. I use technology as a tool, and like I said, it's a little bit different for me. I'm a little bit more comfortable, and I think my students have a better grasp on those things than, say, a teacher who doesn't use technology like I use technology in class. So, to answer the question, do I feel more comfortable and more confident now? I think that that the expectations are kind of where they're supposed to be with online learning during this worldwide pandemic.
And I won't give away where you're from, because I know. Well, I think I know where you're from. Pretty sure I do. And that, we're just recently getting to one-to-one here. So, because we're from the same neck of the woods. I'll say it
right.
that way.
Yes, sir.
So, so if they hear that you've been one-to-one for years, on one hand says that a boy, on the other hand makes me upset. But that's a whole nother can of worms for another day, about the difference between
right.
where you're at and where I'm at now.
Right. Right. Now, I understand what you're saying. Now, we also have to keep this in mind. In 2007, we had a very progressive superintendent, and he really pushed for it. The state of North Carolina, where I teach, they were kind of, laying down some incentives for our end-of-grade testing, and it was really kind of a push for technology way back in 2007, and so the superintendent we had at the time, I think, really wanted to get ahead of the curve, we had some tremendous other educators in our school district that really spearheaded the project, and I just kind of rode their coattails, and like I said, I think we're a lot better off. Where I teach is probably a good 5 years ahead of school districts that are much bigger, in my opinion, because of what we did and how we did it.
So I kind of framed the reference earlier about having a teacher that takes you back, and obviously becoming a teacher. There had to have been a teacher at some point that inspired you to become a teacher.
Yeah. Now that's great to bring that up. I went to Sagertown Junior Senior High School, class of 1996. And if anybody has been to Sagertown, they remember our social studies department. We had some tremendous teachers back then, and I'm sure we have tremendous teachers there now. I just, once again, don't get a chance to go up to Sagertown as much as I'd like to. But there was a guy named Mr. Sherry. He was a wonderful teacher. He made social studies fun. This was my 7th grade year. We would, work on geography, we'd work on history, and he would make it very interesting. He'd add in little bits of humor, which is something I do with my classes, even to this day. Teachers trying to insert humor into the classroom is important. Students learn a lot better that way, believe it or not, if they're kind of comfortable with it, if they're relaxed with it. And he would do Monty Python sketches, not the dirty ones, of course, but Monty Python sketches in class, have little jokes and such, say a little, what we call dad jokes today, little puns here and there. And like I said, it was wonderful, and I was excited, and I was said to myself, that guy gets paid to talk to kids about history, and he tells little jokes, and he seems to be having a wonderful time. I think that's something I want to do. I've always been interested in history. I thank Indiana Jones for that. I loved, the history aspects of it, and when I got into school, like I said, tremendous teachers, and they definitely encouraged me to be the tremendous educator I am today.
So I have this interactive question flying by on the video for those people that are paying attention, and they should be, because that video is getting better every week. But anyways, enough about that. More about this. The question is, what's your favorite subject? And I can almost go on a limb and say yours is history.
I am. I'm a huge history nerd. I love the Civil War. That's kind of my favorite time period, the American Civil War. Very, once again, topical situation, topical thing right now. In America, is where sometimes we're still fighting the Civil War. But like I said, there's very interesting stuff to me. I went to Gettysburg when I was, probably about 13 years old, and then just really kind of fell in love with it. I've read Killer Angels about 100 times. I love that aspect of it, and it's kind of my bread and butter. But love social studies, love history, love geography. Terrible at math. That's why I got into social studies.
I get it, my friend. I get it. So, hey, like I said, I appreciate you. I wanted to get you on here to kind of kickstart this conversation in all different directions because I knew you could do that. So, I appreciate you immensely for that.
Anytime. I'm humbled to be on here, and have a great night. And the truth is out there, sir.
Keep kicking me guessed. One of these times you might hit one. I mean, they're all good. I'll say this to you, and I'll say this to everybody. I get a lot of people that are great, that would be great guests. I only do, I say I do 52 shows a year, but I do these call-in shows, so it really whittles that number down even further than 52. So don't get mad at me. I promise. I do believe in all of them, but in some, so just don't take it personally. Not just you.
It's all good, man.
Hey, thanks again, man.
All right, take it easy, buddy. Bye.
And that's Bruce, long time friend of the show, long time friend of mine, and I'm excited to get him on here. I say this, and we keep saying we're gonna meet up and all this other stuff and talk some other stuff, and I'm a bad person. We got to change that. Okay, so open lines 234-738-2552. Save that number in your phone. If you don't want to call in about education, I can guarantee you in the next year there will be something you want to call into this program about, because if you haven't noticed in the last few months, these have been becoming more and more present. Trying to do one of them once a month. I'm going to try to do them the first Tuesday of the month, I think is what I've decided on, just to kind of keep that momentum going with them. I know the first Tuesday of November has annually been prediction shows, so these first Tuesdays might start to theme out through the course of the next couple years. I am so excited about that. But like I said, that makes the show, being a guest-driven show, even harder to get on. And I know there's a bunch of people out there who are like, Jim, I went back on and you're talking about doing more call-in shows. Are you out of your bleeping mind? Yes, I am, because the show is listener-driven as much as it is guest-driven. So, okay, so it's education tonight is the big buzzword we're looking for. Now, do you have a student going back to school and are excited about how that looks for him? Maybe. Do you have a favorite teacher that you want to tell on tonight? You could do that as well. Do you have a favorite subject you just want to talk, mention in some format that has really changed your life? We can do that as well. If Bruce, like his favorite subject was history, and then took it a step further and became a history teacher based off his passion for that. See where this is all at, right? There's layers to this conversation tonight. So that's what we're up against. Up against a lot, right? There's a lot to this. It's not necessarily a simple conversation when you start talking education, because education touches so many people at different points. Maybe. Right? Because education starts young. 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you get in kindergarten. Go up through elementary school, middle school, high school. Some of you folks proceed to college. Get your degree, your master's, your doctorate. Right? So education can be a lifelong process for some of you. And for some of us, me included, education wasn't necessarily the feather, the driving force at the point of our life where we were in education, right? I find myself learning more today about relationships, business, science, history, technology today as a student of life, the student of University of Life, than I did when I was in school. Now, was that because my teachers were bad? No, that is not the truth. But it wasn't what was forced. I don't want to say forced on me, because I don't want to say any of this education stuff, this video, these Shoutcast Icecraft streams are forced on me. This has all been a choice that I have made to do the show this way, with all the bells and whistles and all the productions that you can have. Hey, Germantown Runner, I know you're listening, but do you see? Scroll down, left side, scroll down. There should be a special player there for you. I don't know if it's working or not, so you don't have to watch YouTube. I'm not sure if it's there, Germantown Runner. It should be, but it's hard for me to do these things live, so I need that feedback from Germantown Runner. He's doing a great job in the chat room tonight, which is amazing, because he is always great, by the way. If you guys, I'm serious, I say this a lot, and I mean I say this a lot. If you guys aren't in the Duck Pond Live Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, you are missing out. You miss out on Germantown Runner. He's been a great friend of this program for a long time. I call him a producer of the show. I don't know if he honors that title or wants that title, but he assists in the production of the show. Okay, that sucks. They're supposed to, okay. So for those who are playing along at home as I play this audio-visual game with Germantown Runner, as we're talking about education tonight, on the left side of the live Duck Pond page, you've got the YouTube player, I want to say the Spark player, the Shark player, the Malliard 24/7, ad-free talk radio, all these great tune-in players with the direct listen links below them in case the tune-in link is not working, so you can just go directly to the feed. And all 4 of those audio players are playing out separate sources. And then below that is supposed to be a Twitch box, because I'm supposed to be live on Twitch tonight. But I don't know if that player got set up right. So we'll see. Very cool stuff going on here. And while we're out spilling the beans and talking shop for a few minutes while I'm kind of stumbling around about education, because I know somebody out there is listening who wants to call in. Just hasn't done it yet. So we're going to give them an opportunity here for sure. Right? You're going to start seeing me more. A lot more. Okay? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you're going to be seeing the Malliard Report video feed replaying old shows at 9 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, and D Live. I think that's all the places. There's 5 or 6 places. I think that's all of them. You're going to be seeing a lot more of me as we try to grow this bad boy out. Oh, yeah. It appears broken. Okay. Of course it does. It said it was working. Is it working? Of course not. Okay. Working on it, though. The box is there. It's half the... No, it's not half the battle. The box is the easy part. Okay. Anyways. Enough about that. Enough about the inside baseball stuff that's going on here. I don't think... Now, maybe this is the time to talk about this. As you look at what the report spins out into, the different sites, the different broadcast sources, the different. There's a lot of good things going on here, guys. I'm telling you, a lot of good things going on here. It's just amazing some of the stuff that able to pull off. Right? I don't know if you guys realize that, because I think sometimes in this world of podcasts, I'm going to sit here and rip a podcaster right now. Sorry. Not sorry. In this world of podcasting, it's too easy for people to sit here and say, right now at this point, hey, support my Patreon and get extra content. Right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying look at the stuff that is getting done on the shoestring of a budget that I have for this bad boy. Think about it. I just listed off a bunch of audio streams that I'm running myself, a bunch of video sources, and replaying a video for free. There's no catch. I want you guys to get out there and share the show. I want you guys to come in and listen to the show live. It baffles my mind, right? Like, everybody else is like, dude, you could put it behind a paywall and make, a few $1,000 instantly. Like, yeah, your people would pay. And I'm like, dude, I'd rather my people get out there and share. Right, really? Okay. Anyways. So just search Malliard, you'll find me. I'm doing a lot more of this aggressive marketing for whatever that's worth. Yeah, Maury, that's okay. Good to see you, by the way. Okay. So we're talking education tonight. Now that I'm off of my soapbox about how great the show is doing. And by the way, it's doing just fine. Could be doing better. Could be doing a lot worse. Trust me, it could be. Okay, well, it's week 1, right? So at least it's there. So we'll get it figured out. It might just become, I don't know. We'll see. Wasn't my first choice. Okay, anyways, right, Germantown Runner is right. Back to education. So I guess the question becomes, right, as it pops up on the screen. See, this is what I'm talking about. If you're watching this on video right now, you need to type your favorite subject in school in the box and get these comments going. Oh, okay, so what was my favorite subject in school? I kind of called Bruce out and kind of put him on the spot. My favorite subject in school Now, it would be easy for me to say computers, right? Because I spend all this time building all these websites, and I'm grateful for that. That seed of computer class literally planted in my mind, building these websites and building everything out on top of that basic knowledge that I learned. So I can't disregard that, even though what I learned is a drip in what I do today, right? But it definitely planted that seed. So I'm thankful for that. Because there were other things I could have took and probably should have took, but I didn't. So the other thing, right? So English wasn't my favorite class, that's for sure. Math, I did okay, but it was work. We'll come back to that in a second. There we go, I think.
Hello, Duckmaster. This is Dave, Germantown Runner.
Germantown Runner, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing just great. Just, survived the tropical storm as it whizzed by.
Well, I'm glad you did, because Brian Bowden did not. He is without power tonight, and a lot of people there in the greater New York metro are struggling tonight. So I guess we should think about that.
He took it. He took a much more of a direct hit than we did here in the D.C. area. Just some very minor flooding. Not even that much winds, but a lot of rain. But nothing like what Brian has. Never lost my power, thank goodness. And by noon today, by lunch, the sun was out, blazing sunshine.
That's
so go figure.
Thing. That's the good thing.
Yeah, so, that's a good thing.
So I'm interested on your take here about education. Now I know you mentioned to me about going down the current day, but I want to take you back a little bit before we get to will come forward. What was your? I think I know. I'm going to say science. What was your favorite subject in school?
My favorite subject was English.
Oh, that was a coin flip though. I was close.
It was being a journalist. Anything that had to do with the spoken or written word was something that I excelled in. Science was good. Science, I enjoyed it and I liked it a lot. Math, forget it. I had the worst mathematics experience that's, I think, possible in education. You want me to tell my story?
Yes, please. That's the point of tonight's show, to tell stories about education.
So when I was going through elementary school outside of Chicago, in suburban Chicago, from where I'm a native, it was during the era when schools were experimenting with mathematics, and they were dumping their rote mathematics, where you memorize multiplication tables, subtraction tables, and those things through repetition, and they adopted this hippy-dippy, feel-good new math. It was called new math. And you counted everything on number lines, and you visualized thought boxes up in the air that looked like clouds, and you had, inside the cloud, you had the number 2, and in this other cloud, you had the number 4, and then you looked down at this number line, and you put your finger on it, and you counted with your fingers. And they rolled this out nationally across the United States in many, many, many public school districts. This was in the 1970s, so I'm dating myself here. So, as a kid, as a grade school kid. And then, of course, it was a colossal failure. It was a colossal flop, and new math then was gone. So by the time I got to high school, junior high, I guess here on the East Coast they call it middle school. When I was going through school in the Midwest, we called it junior high. It was 7th and 8th grade. By the time I got to junior high, I was lost, because they went back to the math of, my parents' generation, and just expected us to know it, as if, we had been taught math as kids that way. So for all of us kids that started in the old-fashioned math, 2 plus 2 is 4, and flashcards and memorizing things like that, and then veered into new math, and then veered out of new math when it was a colossal failure, we kids were left behind. So math to me was like Russian. I literally could not understand it, and I did every single thing I could to catch up. I had extra tutoring after school, and I took extra studies upon myself, and it just never sunk in. It's like my brain was programmed incorrectly to begin with, and I probably didn't have a natural propensity for math anyways, being that English and and the spoken word were my favorites, and history and social studies. So all those factors combined just left me lost. So I went through school, and I'm talking all the way through graduate school, and I did everything I could. I twisted myself into a pretzel to never have to take a mathematics class again after high school. And you know what? I did it. I did it. I took a lot of science that qualified as math, even kind of the math group. You could choose math or science or, whatever. I took all the science classes. I took, at the time, I don't know if it's still offered now. I think it is. You could take something in high school called the CLEP test. It stood for something, college level entry. I don't know what it was, the CLEP test. If you scored high enough on this test, which you could study for, you would get college credit for math. Or you could take the English CLEP test or the history CLEP test. Well, I CLEP'd out of 6 hours of math. I don't know how I did it. Honest to God, I don't know how I did. It must have been God must have intervened for me and took my number 2 lead pencil and filled in the circles for me, because I scored well enough on it that I got my goal and I never had to take math again.
We need to find
after high school.
We need to find that test, and I demand a recount.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there were hanging chads. I'm sure there were hanging chads on that test, and I'll tell you what, right now, I ain't going back.
I can't blame you. So the default has been about a particular teacher that has impacted somebody. In this case, you. I'm sure there was one that had to have been really special throughout these years. Yeah,
there really was. There was. I have a tie for first. One of them was back in junior high. I had an English teacher who was a linguist. And to be a linguist, you have to be able to speak 7 languages. And I was just, blown away by her. She could speak 7 languages, and she was the first person that I had ever met that could speak that many languages. And she really inspired me to learn languages. So, in addition to English, I studied Spanish and Latin and German and a tiny little bit, un peu français. And it just got me inspired to love languages even more than I already did. She was an inspiration. And her teaching method was particularly effective for me, I guess the way my brain was wired, that the way she taught, I just absorbed everything like a sponge. We did singing in class to learn languages. She used every method possible to teach the language. I'm assuming that some of those techniques are taught even now in some of these software programs like Babbel and these other language learning programs. We did a lot of conversational things and a lot of singing of songs in those countries. When you learn a song, you begin to learn the intonation and the associations of things. And I don't know, I picked up on it really good. And her name was Senora Lovrenchek, and she was from Serbo-Croatia in Europe before all the big, Serbian war and all the ethnic cleansing and all that. This was back in the 70s. So she had married an American and immigrated here. She was older. She was maybe in her late 40s, early 50s. When you're 12 years old, that seems, pretty old. And compared to my other teachers who were much younger than was she. And she was just an inspiration. I really liked her. Then in high school, by that time I had moved here to the D.C. area, and I had a British literature, Brit Lit teacher. And you know what? I feel bad, but I cannot remember her name right now. But she was from England, had the big English accent, and she talked like this, and it was hilarious. But again, she taught in a way that for me was very effective. I mean, I just embraced Shakespeare and, the Old English and the Middle English, Chaucer, and we just learned everything. And I did so well that at the end of the school year, this was my senior year in high school. At the end of the school year, she gave, unbeknownst to any of us, she gave away little awards, little trinkets to people who graduated, who finished their class with the highest combined cumulative average of grades, the most improved, the this, the that. Not everyone got one. She had like 4 or 5 awards, and I got one of the awards. I got highest cumulative average of grades. And it was, I'm going to date myself again, here we go. It was the year that Prince Charles and Lady Diana got married. It was a big royal wedding. It was a year after it, actually. And she had flown, my British lit teacher had flown to Britain for the wedding, and she brought back, unbeknownst to any of us that we were going to, some of us were going to get these little gifts, she brought back a coffee mug that was a souvenir coffee mug that was printed in honor of the royal wedding of Charles and Diana. And I remember when she gave it to me, she had me stay after class. I was like, oh, great, a coffee mug, this is great, and she's, I'm a high school kid, okay, great, thanks. She said, don't ever get rid of this coffee mug. It's going to be a collectible one day. And little did I know how right she would be. It's worth a lot of money now. I've looked. I still have it. It's not the most beautiful thing you'd ever look at. It looks very British. It's very kind of Monty Python looking with those kind of fonts and logos and things. And, I never thought much of it. I didn't scoff at it. I just was like, okay, great coffee mug. And now with everything that's transpired with what happened between those two and the history and everything else, and I've never had a liquid in it. She said, don't ever use this. Just put it on a shelf. And this is going to be worth something. And I did exactly what she said. I've never used it. It's moved with me wherever I've moved in my life, different, towns and homes and things. And I still have it. So that's my other teacher that made a big impact on me.
So revealing a little bit more about myself in this moment, I took 4 years of French in high school. Thanks, John McBriar. I'm not sure why. I mean, I passed those 4 years because I do not know any French whatsoever. But I mean, I know why. I mean, because I put in the work and I tried, right? But I learned more about English from trying to learn French than I did from English and English class. Does that make sense to you? Like how to structure
it does. Yes.
And how all that stuff actually worked, like stuff that we teach kids and you're just supposed to understand. Like it just becomes like, you just don't ask questions why that is, noun first and verb second all the time and all that, like all that stuff.
Exactly.
So I did learn a lot, but for what he was grading on, not so much. But
well, what I've learned is that once you have mastery of a second language, other languages that are related on the language tree to that second language are very, very easy to pick up. I'll give you an example. So obviously English is my native language, my native tongue. And then I learned German. And German and English are very, very similar in sentence structure and things like that. For instance, in the Romance languages, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, they invert their adjectives and their nouns. So, for instance, they'll say, the girl has eyes blue. In Spanish, the girl has eyes blue. But we don't say that. In English, we say, the girl has blue eyes. Well, in German, they say, the girl has blue eyes. It's the same way. So it's one less rule, one less thing you have to learn when you're learning that second language. So now, once I had mastered German, and I am fluent in German, and obviously English, you get an unintended understanding of a bonus third language without having ever opened a book for that language. Do you want to know what it is? Can you guess? Can you guess?
Lay it on me here. I think I know, but go ahead.
Dutch. Dutch, which is spoken in Holland, or also known as the Netherlands, is a combination of English and German. So if you understand English and German, you can understand Dutch when it's spoken. I cannot speak Dutch. I cannot write Dutch. I cannot read Dutch. But I can understand it because it's partly English and it's partly German. And I understand it completely. But I can't talk it or write it or read it. But it just goes to show you how those associations in language are very close. And once you get one or two languages under your belt, the others come much quicker. Now, I will say that for me, languages just naturally, unlike with mathematics, my brain is wired for language. So, I think I probably had that going for me as well, and I recognize that as a factor. But for me, when I learned that second language, boom, the others came very quick, because they all follow very, very similar patterns. So that's my whole thing on languages.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Now, can I tell you about teaching?
Yes, please.
I think I may have told your audience once before, but my daughter is a teacher.
Yes.
She is a public school teacher of third graders in Montgomery County, Maryland School District. That just made news this week when the top health official of Montgomery County, Maryland, closed all private schools in addition to public schools for the China virus, at least for the first semester through January 1st. And that's private charter schools, private parochial and religious schools. The government stepped in when we have this, separation of church and state, and closed the private schools in addition to the public schools, including the school that Barron Trump goes to in Montgomery County, Maryland, St. Andrews. It's a private school in Montgomery County, and that's where the first son goes. And Montgomery County just closed it. Well, the governor of Maryland this week stepped in and overrode that decision with an executive order and reopened all private and parochial and charter schools. Who want to open are now going to be allowed to open, and the government cannot do anything to stop them with this order because it supersedes everything. He's the governor. So I spoke to my daughter about this, who is a public school teacher, so she'll be teaching out of her home yet again for the entire first semester. And she's generally, supportive of what Montgomery County, which is very liberal, would do. She's, generally supports teachers' unions positions, things like that. Things that her old man definitely does not. So I talked to her about this, and I will tell you that in a great fit of integrity and honesty, she said, "Dad, this distance learning has been a disaster. It's been an unmitigated disaster. It doesn't begin to replicate the experience that a child would have in person with their teacher and a teacher's aide and the gym teacher and the recess teacher and the lunch lady and all their friends sitting at homeroom table and all this." She said, "It's all gone. It's all gone." And a lot of the kids are computer proficient, but their parents are not. These kids, growing up, my daughter, she ran circles around me on the computer. I would go to her literally when she was 7, 8 years old and have her come fix my computer. and she would. And that was, a generation ago. Now, can you imagine these kids coming up? They're even more computer savvy. I'm guessing like your kids, Jim.
Oh, yeah. When was the first? Let's pause this. I've got this interesting question right here.
Go ahead.
We'll go back to this here in a second. When was the first time you used the computer?
1985.
And how old were you? You were old though.
Well, I like to think of myself as a young buck back then, but
you mentioned your daughter being 7 or 8.
I was 22.
Right. As I'm saying here, though, I'm saying these kids today have tablets and all these other things in their hand from pre-4 up. Like it's so.
Oh yeah. With my daughter, she was a little bit of that transitional generation. Being a millennial, so she got her first handheld smartphone around age 10. But now it's much younger than that even.
Yeah. Okay, so
much younger.
So enough about that.
So she was telling me that she would be one to support the teachers not going back to class, to support the hardline union position on this, and she told me that she's feeling a break, she's feeling a severing of her philosophy now from what all of these scaredy cat teachers are talking about and using quite frankly, what I think is bogus claims by the teachers union. Now they've expanded their list of demands beyond just the health of the teacher. Now they're not going to go back to school unless they get universal health care for everybody and minimum wage of $15 an hour in all sectors of the economy, and a whole laundry list of things that have nothing to do with education. Nothing. It has nothing to do with the China virus. And they realize that they've got this leverage to they are the only teachers. They are it. And so they've got a lot of bargaining power, especially when they're in a union. So I thought it was very revealing when my daughter said, "This is not working. It's a disaster." I mean, it's the worst best solution that they've got right now. The worst best. So I don't know, I thought that was very eye-opening. I just said, "I'm sorry that you're going to have to go through this and all this stuff." And I mean, she's getting very pessimistic about things. She said that when you have a class of 22, 25 people, some of which English is their second language, the parents have no clue how to use these computers, these tablets that in many cases they're being given by Montgomery County, Maryland. Montgomery County is one of the wealthiest counties in all of the United States of America. It's directly outside of Washington, D.C., to the north in Maryland. And, the parents don't know how to do this, so if the kids can't figure out how to use the software, what is it, the Google Meet, and they have another one called Teacher something software, if that software doesn't work or the kid doesn't know how to use it, then the teacher has to stop the entire class, all the learning, and, fix the software issue or the technical issue remotely, online, and try to figure it out themselves, and then resume the class. By that time, 15 minutes has gone by. You've got kids that, have attention issues, and you've lost them now. And she just said it's really, really bad. And these years we're not going to get them back. They're not going to hold these kids back. They're going to keep advancing them.
Yeah, that's the.
So even though they're not getting the quality, third grade education that they would have gotten 2 years ago, they're still going to advance them next year into the fourth grade.
That's the part of this that really gets me going, because I can see in the future, right, once we get back to regular traditional education where the technology becomes hand in hand and integrated, there's great things that can come from that down the road.
Absolutely.
If a kid has a sick day, the teacher's already on camera, blah, 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 right? It's recorded. Everybody can. I mean, there's great things that can. The island in the middle here looks good. Like, there's a lot better things to come. It's just that bridge that we're building out of toothpicks right now that's the problem.
Right, exactly. And, I also, listening to your first caller, your guest from North Carolina, the school teacher, he is in the frontline trenches. I have to yield a lot to him and to his knowledge and to his firsthand experience. He's in the classroom, I'm not, blah, blah, blah. But one impression I got from that phone call, and I'm not at all casting aspersions on him in any way, but what I found myself thinking, and I was kind of shaking my head, was, wow, the health professionals, and I put quote marks around professionals, the health professionals in our country have really done a number on people to scare them. I mean, he was frightened. You could hear it. He is frightened to go into that classroom. When, if you look at all of the scientific data, all of the contagious risk factors, the populations that are going in, he doesn't have a lot to worry about. Now, granted, I'm not in that classroom. I don't have 25 kids sneezing on me. I grant him all of that. But you could hear his hesitation, and I'm guessing he's a young, healthy guy who doesn't have any underlying health risks. I'm just assuming all this. And that, a lot of this fear has been instilled in him, and it's causing people to think in ways that heretofore they would never have thought.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting to watch from the outside, so to speak. Of all I mean, it's easy for
processes,
me, right?
It's easy for you and me, and I'm not going to implicate you in this. I'll just say me. It's easy for me to sit back and say, "Oh, look at you! You're such a fraidy cat. You should go into school and teach these kids." Blah blah blah. I'm not trying to be so cavalier. I'm just saying, wow, what a number our politicians and our health, quote, professionals, unquote, have done on us.
Yeah, and
that we are afraid of our own shadows now.
It's not only the politicians, it's the media that has played into this. But that's a whole...
and the media.
That's a whole other conversation for another live call-in show that will probably be coming probably in September. But anyway, so stay tuned for that.
Yes. The media is absolutely complicit in this. And as a journalist, not somebody who writes about healthcare, but as somebody who is in the media, my profession is absolutely complicit in turning people into frightened mice. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
So here's the fun twister in Pennsylvania from, was that yesterday? Or must be yesterday because today is Tuesday. Okay, so it must have been yesterday.
Yes.
Governor Tom Wolf, said that if you have, if you're going online, you just can't have contact sports. Is basically what he came out said. So he's saying, if you want to have football, you have to go back to the classroom. And Western Pennsylvania, the cradle of quarterbacks, right? You know where this is all driving, right? To put them back in school, which is an interesting take for him because he said he wasn't getting, he was going to leave it to local districts and this and that, and then he came out and said this, and I went, wait a second, where did that? I mean, that just hit me out of left field, like. Where did that come from? I thought you were staying out of it and leave it to local decisions, and then you just kind of dropped their grenade on everybody because that really, for some of these districts, I mean, I hate to say it, but football comes before education.
Oh, especially in Western Pennsylvania.
So,
I mean, sports is a ticket to ride for many athletes, for many families to get their kids into college. And I don't mean as superstar players. I mean just as, a prospect.
Yeah,
gets them a scholarship. It gets them entry into schools that they otherwise wouldn't get into. And now without sports, look at the ripple effect this is going to have on a partial generation of school kids going through the system right now. This is a disaster. This is an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah,
This is not typhoid. This is not some incredibly contagious disease. What were the initial numbers that they said in a year's time we would have 2.5 million people dead in the United States? 2.5 million. How many do we have today? 155,000. Yes, those are 155,000 souls that have been lost. The majority of those people, the extra plurality of those people, are in high-risk groups. They're elderly people, God rest their souls, with underlying health conditions. Of those 155,000, 100,000 of them are in that group. And they're also in nursing homes and extended care facilities. So we frighten this population. If kids can't go to school, why do we let truckers still out on the road and in warehouses? Why do we still have grocery clerks working, quote-unquote, essential workers? If this is so contagious and so perilous to the future of the human race in our country, why are restaurants open?
Well, we're
and why can you go to Costco and Sam's Club? Why?
I don't know.
This is baloney. This is baloney.
Are you following Andrew Gould from a month ago or 2 months ago, whenever he was on?
Yes.
The chef. Have you been following his tweets about how family restaurants are in trouble and I think he said, oh God, don't quote me, 50% of restaurants are going to go out of business in the next 2 years?
Yeah. It broke my heart today. I'll tell you a very, very short story, and I'll let you go so you can let another caller come in. I hate to hog all your time, but I was running an errand today. I went to a farm co-op called Southern States, and I buy my bird seed there in these giant bulk bags. It's cheaper. So I drove to Southern States, which was open for the farmers, and bought my supplies. And on the way back to my house, I decided to go through downtown, the historic downtown of my little town. I hadn't been down there in a while, and it broke my heart to see all the restaurants that I've been to down there closed. I don't mean just closed their doors. I mean closed and emptied. Emptied of their tables and their neon signs and their counters. Gone. Just shelves. That 3 months ago were thriving in this little town, this little trendy town. with a little trendy downtown that we have here. And it broke my heart because I hadn't been down there in a couple months to that section of town, the trendy area, and it broke my heart. Many, many, many mom and pop stores closed. Those are American dreams. Those are American dreams. Many of them, by the way, opened by immigrants who were trying to get a slice of the American dream for themselves.
So I've got one more.
And now you had these governors come in who are intoxicated with this power to control. It's a very authoritarian impulse. And once they've tasted this power to open and close at will, the beach is open, the beach is closed, on and on this goes. They like it. It sure is a lot easier to rule by decree like a king than to have to go through a legislature, isn't it?
Sure seems that way.
Yeah, but these are real people's lives. I mean, I drove down the street, and it was a ghost town. It was sad, really sad. It's going to take a decade or more to recover from that.
So I've got one more point for Germantown runners. So if you want to be the last caller on this program, because we've got about 9 minutes left.
Oh, God, I got to go. Yeah, go ahead.
So fire up, get ready to fire up. But I got to mention this. Former guest Bob Levine has agreed to sell his team, his NASCAR team, today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that. Oh, wow. I hope he got a good price.
I hope so, too. I know eventually Bob will be back on. He's agreed to that before. I told him
sure.
So I sent him a little message today. Congratulations. I hope it all went well. Still
pulling for, I hope he made out like a bandit.
So I'm sure
good for him.
I'm sure we might find out at some point. But
oh, that's wonderful.
So I just wanted to mention.
All right, well, Duckmaster, I will let you go so someone else can call in. And sorry for hogging so much time up, but I do like the topic of education. So
I knew you would. So okay, hey, gotta go.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
So let's see if that worked. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Let's see if it did. Hello?
Hello? Mr. Mallard, greetings from blacked out New York.
Well, how are you doing tonight, Brian Bud? We talked about you a little bit ago and sent you some love.
I appreciate the love, everyone. I'm sitting in my car charging cell phones and backup power little gadgets, and I figured I could always listen to the show this way, so it worked out.
I'm glad it's working out for you. I know you've been there has been some struggles the last month or two or whatever it has been, but anyways, I'm glad it's working out for you. So, but actually, on education, before we run out of time.
Yes. Science was my favorite. History and science. I taught myself math. I'm with you on that, Dave. I don't like Common Core. I think it's a socialist, communist BS to make children dependent upon third parties for answers. And that's just my 2 cents and from what I've seen. Other than that, my kids are not learning a damn thing from this homeschool stuff. My wife has been teaching my youngest. I've been teaching certain things to my youngest, and between my oldest and, my oldest gets it a little bit more, but she's still not learning. One of the good things that came out of this was my youngest was on a video call, I guess, with one of her friends, and she says, I hope I don't have the same teacher next year, which is really great. But this is really bad. I disagree with some of what Dave said. I don't think the union has a lot of power, and I don't think teachers have any power, and if the teachers wised up, the union isn't doing a damn thing for them. They're trying to make this into a political statement. There hasn't been one case globally of this virus being transmitted to children or from children to adults in any school setting or any setting of the sort. So let that sink in. 2, there's a 98% survival rate with this virus. Not that anybody wants to get it, but it's very important to know. I'm a very big proponent of some of the treatments that are being blocked out by the media and by, I'm going to say, the left side of this country not wanting to come out, one of which in 2005 was endorsed wholeheartedly by Dr. Fauci himself, that hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine, whatever, is effective to stop this virus, not only when you get it and on a ventilator as well, when you're in a ventilator, but while you're even going through it, it will totally eradicate this, but also as a preventative. You could give 100 milligrams twice a day, very safe, to men, women, children, dogs, cats, whoever, and you won't get the virus. This medicine has to be put over the counter, and we the people should be able to decide what we want to take instead of listening to people who are clearly being manhandled by the powers that be. But so, Dave, I really think that parents have a lot more power, and if the parents said, "Hey, we want the schools open," they got to go open them. I feel sorry for his daughter who's teaching, because it's frustrating. You know, these people go into this with a heart of gold. It's not like you're going to make $1 billion teaching, or even 100,000. You know, so it's very frustrating. But I'm liking the fact that people are waking up to the fact that things aren't as their unions are advertising, or what the news has been saying. So I'm on with the Dave train. I'm in one of the compartments there, but I'm liking that America and we the people are really waking up to the lies that are being spread, and that continues in our education system as well. I mean, this Common Core crap is, and I'm sorry for the phrase, but it's junk. It's garbage. It won't work. Make 13 or 10 to subtract. No, just take the 3 from the 7 and figure it out.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yep. I don't know PA and other states, but none of this stuff is working for these kids, and we have to put our children now into classes which are called ITC, where there's like a second teacher, in order for them to get a little bit more attention and help in school. My favorite subject when I was going to school, I had to teach myself math. If you showed me a couple times, I got it. But my favorite subject was science. We were the only school in New York City to have a planetarium in it. And it was taught by Mr. Bernstein, Steve Bernstein, who I'm still friendly with now. It took me a couple of years to stop calling him Mr. Bernstein and just Steve, but great guy. And I love learning, and I think it's a good thing. But I'm my job this last 6 months or whatever since it started is to deprogram my children from the junk that the education department, which is totally politicized on the left side, and their socialist agenda and narratives are trying to fill in the heads of these kids.
So, Brian, I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to cut you off because I teased at the beginning of the show for doing the reason for doing the show, so I want to get to that before we run out of time. Sorry. But,
you got it.
Thanks, man.
I'm going to listen in now.
So, the reason I felt to do the show tonight, it was very clear to me. Okay, so Saturday evening, I got a message that my 12th grade English teacher had passed away. And so that hit me in a way that I didn't think would. Because it's been years, and it's been all this other stuff, and all this stuff has happened. And it kind of sat in the back of my mind that I needed to take a moment and reflect upon that tonight. But I didn't want to. So I sent out my normal guest request and, was hoping that somebody would fill the show tonight. But it didn't happen that way. And then probably around 2 o'clock this afternoon, it became clear that I needed to do live calls and then mention this. I've got to thank Meryl Cowart. She is probably the reason I'm here tonight. She is that 12th grade English teacher I was referring to. At the end of the first semester, she grabbed me and showed me my grade, which was horrible because our teachers went on strike, and I was just focused on golf season, was not focused on academics. And because of the strike, I didn't have to be focused on academics because I was not going to be ineligible because of the length of the thing. But by the time it worked out, I needed to do better. And that was bad. And she grabbed me and she looked at me square in the eye and says, "Quit fucking around. Do better." Graduation day, she grabbed me by the elbow like any loved one would and said, don't make me say it again. And I appreciate those words more today than I did then. So I just want to take a moment and remember that, and remember her, and thank you all for listening.